Thank you, Al, for organizing this. Thank you all for being here. I know some of you are a little nervous about this presentation, but don't be. This is how you get good feedback and how we get to know each other better. And all I want to say is to the thesis students who are here and who are going to give comments and evaluations and criticism to those going into thesis this coming year, please do a diligent job. Please tell people that you're reviewing what you think they need to do, what your experience was at this stage. Put some effort and time and real consideration into it, because it's very helpful, as you well know.
Hey guys.
And that's the point of this, is not to judge anybody, but rather to help everybody as they move into what we now know is the most important summer of your life. Thank you.
Come now, guys. Come on. So welcome everyone. Good evening. This is our last event in the big room here, guys. Last Flying Fug event, but it's also one of the really exciting events that we have each semester, where all of you get to present all the incredible work you've been doing this semester so far. And so tonight we have all our amazing first years who are moving into their thesis are going to be showing their work. So hopefully you guys all know the procedure. So you've got 5 minutes with which to present all your incredible work. When you hear the creepy theremin sound of the sci-fi movie, that means your time is up and you've got to like finish up. But that's not going to happen to any of you because you've all practiced, you've timed yourself, and you're all good to go. So hopefully you know the order and who is right before you in presenting. If you get confused, I will give you guys a heads up and shout out. So for those of you, the thesis students who are writing responses and feedback, for the first year students, as Charlie said, please try and do like a thorough job. Be critical, give them good feedback and advice for their presentation, both in terms of how they presented, the content of their work, suggestions, etc. What else? And those reviews, send it to me and the student that you're reviewing. If for some reason you don't know that person's email, let me know and I can give it to you, but I'm sure you all know each other's emails from the hundreds of emails that Alice, Charlie, and I, Mary and Seth send you. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to hand over the mic to Mika, who is going to kick off this evening. And good luck to all of you. You are all art stars, so I will hit the lights.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here and also really nerve-wracking to be the first one. But I can't help but notice that we're all in the same room for the same event with similar chairs, and yet all our body languages towards the event, how we react is really different. And that in short explains my work, because I believe that we all unknowingly do so many different things similarly and so many similar things in our own distinct and characteristic way. This is what my work attempts to explore the psychoanalysis of the body language, which can include gestures, actions, decisions, body parts, and a lot more. I would like to create an archive of these and eventually make it a part of my final piece. I have a few work in progress examples that I'd like to show you. All the smiles I've shared. This project observes, especially after the pandemic when we had our masks, still have our masks on, how our face, apart from our lips, smile when we smile. The skin around the eyes act as evidence, which is what I've tried to capture with all the close people in my life. It will be presented in a different format from what you see on this from previously. It will be presented as black acrylic Polaroids, which will be stacked next to each other, which can be picked up and viewed individually. and can be put back in any order depending on how your experience was with it. It's going to be about this size. This. All the hands are touched. Well, this is self-explanatory. It amuses me how we all have the same palm anatomy, yet they're all so distinctly different from each other and have their own story to say. So these are a couple of images. It looks, the colors are really different here, but this too will be presented for my final critique, but in this particular manner, where I'm going to stack up 5-6 similar bunched Polaroids, which are acrylic and can be picked up and viewed individually, because we realized during the class that they all imitate different landscapes and sort of exist individually and when put together. In between feet the subway. This is yet another ongoing attempt to create an archive of society and its behavior. I captured one person on the subway every day who imitated someone else's action of placing things between their feet, and this is what I have till now. Briefcases, shopping bags, backpacks, duffel bags, and the list goes on. I have a couple of images. The last piece I'd like to show you is Your Stain. This is a personal project where I asked all the people in my life to share an image of their most used lipsticks, which made me realize how differently we stain a mass-produced identical product with our repeated gesture and choices. Here are some of the many artists whose work amused me. Desmond Morris' books and Neil Goldberg especially have helped me not just look but also see closely. So yeah, heads up if you find me creepily noticing your movements and documenting how you sit, walk, sneeze, or blink. Because I'd like to quote that, like Charlie says, you know yourself better when you look out. So that's what I'm going to do. So see you around. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Fan Yu, and today I'm going to present two projects I did, and the first one called Numen. So Numen is a dictionary. It has two meanings. One is the object or matter itself, and the other is the unrecognized thing in itself. And that is the opposite to the phenomenon. These two things represent the rationality and irrationality. The serious work, Numen created a channel connecting rationality and irrationality and trying to explore the irrational matter existing in the world from a rational perspective. And this is a two-channel video I made for this series. And after that, I'm breaking down the video into the video installation. And in this series work, I hope to use the real object through different accumulation and combination to form a channel that can be perceived by the audience. By allowing the audience to explore the channels that cannot be defined and guiding the audience to think about the perceptual boundary of things, allowing the audience to jump out of the framework of the traditional thinking mood and look at the things themselves from an traditional perspective. In this series work, besides the video and video installation, I also combine with the photo installation, and 2 interactive video installations, which is exploring human as an object and the variability of human. And this is the first one. And because of the time, I will not explain them, but if you are interested, just let me know after the presentation. And this is another device I made for this series. So in this semester, I focus on the short videos, and this is my new series. Why hasn't everything already disappeared? So my works were inspired by French philosopher Jean Bonjour's book, Why Hasn't Everything Already Disappeared? Why haven't anything disappeared, like this title? And so this series will use the visual way to explore the idea that disappearance is another form of existence. So the series will consist of a single channel video like this one. It includes 6 short video, and I also have 2 channel video, 6 channel video, and 2 video installation by projections. So the technology blurs the line between the digital world and reality. In the process of digitalization, the disappearance object and the trace of passing are captured by a kind of internal image replay. The digital world as a carrier makes the object exist in different forms. The work uses the various video structure to present the presence. And the fragments narrative was used to challenge the viewers to piece together the different components of the video. And finally, the mysteries behind those fragments were explored. And this is a video from that 1 channel video, and this is part 4. So the object in the video was collected, recycled, released, and divorced in a straightforward way, such as the melting candles, the ice, the invisible air, and so on. So the reality of the object was disappeared, but its characteristic was captured by the digital world and existed in eternity. So I get my inspiration from Tony Osler, Mika Rettenberg, John Wood, and Paul Harrison. And I'm still considering about my thesis project, but the form is meaning video installation. And thank you.
Back to work.
Where's the mouse? Hi everyone, if we haven't met, my name is Greg Korea. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. And going into that, coming from small town Utah, I never had the privilege of being able to walk around a major city and to really experiment and explore the different light that we get to have in the city. So a lot of my time last semester was spent walking around, getting to know New York City and really exploring the light and seeing how the light interacts with subjects and buildings. And a lot of my themes within my street photography, I was thinking a lot about cinema and how to portray everyday moments in a cinematic sort of feeling, and capturing just the things that I've seen on the street, the moments that we all sometimes take for granted as we're walking by, and experimenting with different sorts of ways to capture movement and energy in the photos. But as we progressed through the semester, I found myself wanting and feeling a little bit dissatisfied with my work, and really wanting to really push myself conceptually and try something new that I had never tried before. And around this time, I had a dream where I could see myself falling from a third-person perspective, and that kind of introduced me to the possibility of working with surrealism and some of the contemporary photographers that have influenced my work in this realm have been Joel Robinson and Georgia Rose Hardy, who do a lot of self-portraiture and some fun and playful things with their surrealist motifs. So what I started doing is taking my street photographs that I already had and finding situations where I could composite myself in and recreate the lighting scenarios that I found in the streets. And along with that, I found this mask and the idea of this masked figure to be a little bit more compelling, to kind of go back to that dream where I knew it was me and I could see myself falling, I could see myself interacting with this environment, but I couldn't see my face. And as I made these photographs and these composites and started exploring this, I found myself exploring ideas of alienation and isolation, and what it means for this character to exist in this universe, in this reality, but not being able to be perceived by anything else around him. And how would this character interact in these environments, knowing that no one else can see him, no one else can feel his presence? And then, to switch gears, when I would go out and do my street photography, I would spend the first 15 minutes just taking random photographs and just to kind of get the right mindset of what I wanted to shoot for that day. And what I noticed with this was I started noticing a lot of buildings and a lot of doors, and I started grouping them together in kind of a typographical way, influenced heavily by the work of Byrne and Hill of Becker and how they kind of collected their works and grouped them together. But what I found more interesting about this as I started doing this is I wanted to know more about the buildings. I wanted to know more about the people who made them, and I wanted to give life and breathe life back into that memory, and I started thinking about how could I possibly do that. And what I started exploring and what I'm leaning towards for my thesis is using these transient sort of sculptures with these fabrics to represent the bodies and the memories of the people who have built these buildings. And I'm kind of torn. I'm going to decide on which project I like more, or maybe what I progress from here. But that is my work for this year. Woo!
inspiration of which comes from digital cameras and smartphones zooming function. So here are some visual examples. I'm sorry that like the color looks slightly different because of the projector. Yeah, and this kind of strong techniques enable people to look at things in a destructive way. I found out that when you zoom in on something in a lens or shoot it from a different angle, it can be abstracted into a kind of texture or turned into a different subject, thus creating an illusion and association for viewers that it could be something else. And with this thought in my mind, I experimented with these images. These are all some close-up or zoom-in detail parts of one thing. And definitely I also did some post-productions. For example, like there's a cracked lollipop on the street, and some inside details of the plastic bag of chips, and some reflection of the light spilling through the tree and falling on the tray. Yeah, so also I found that I was taking more than one part of details of one thing at a time. So I also started to like trying to stack the pictures I had together and to form a new one. There's also some work that I've made during the last semester. And basically this, that was what I had made like during the last semester. And in the spring semester, I want to progress with what I have right now. So I keep working on it and dig into my intention more deeply. Also, I'm inspired by Alan Quinlan and Fred Craig's works in terms of like concept, content, and visual forms. Yeah. And here are also some examples to look at. So for this semester, I focused my lens on the most ordinary things or like just stuff in people's daily lives. I photographed various parts of one thing from different angles and distance, and then I used Photoshop to post-produce them, like composing and merging all these different parts, like to form a total new image. I tend to make the images look seamless, but still embed indications about the border between irreality and reality, so that it can like convey a feeling of ambiguity and form an in-between space. And also my deeper concern and intention are to indicate like how photography and all those related techniques reframe our perception of our daily lives. And also I think that the autonomy of photography itself tends to make people feel that imagery is a true reflection of reality. But like as we all know that in fact seeing is not always believing, especially nowadays. So for me, this kind of non-authenticity of reality that photography can bring me, like gives me a real world that is infected with my own subjective imagination. Yeah, and I think that's all of my presentation today. Thank you so much.
Well, there is something extremely terrible attacked me in the last semester and the semester before. And I feel sorrow at that time. So I need to find a way to answer myself and make myself heal. The answer I gave myself is that the world is full of uncertainty. Well, at that time, I painted a painting. I'm not a professional painter, so it's very rough. And in this painting, each line refers to the life of a people. And whenever they meet each other, and it will suddenly break up. But there is a problem in this painting for me, because it is painted by myself. It shows my belief, and I need an evidence from photography. So I started to give a long exposure to the melt ice in this way. And this is the first image I got. But in this image, everything is mixed up. I need to get the time separated. And then I gave a flashlight to it and make this exposure a multi-exposure. But in this image, I still cannot find out the uncertainty I really want. And I still not successfully separate the time until and then I got the image from this photographer. Oops. He separated the time with the color, and I starting to do a same thing. In the water, there is a movement called Brownian movement, and the particle will just move randomly. So I give the long exposure with different light color to show this kind of uncertainty. And I want to get the larger image, so I showed something with a 4x5 camera. And at that time, I got some more detail, but it lost something. And then I should go back to the 35mm camera. And now it becomes something like this. I gave the color with RGB. In this image, each color shows one time. Each color shows each time period. And in this image, I gave a time sequence. And I'm going to continually explore this kind of uncertainty in my thesis year. And this is something I find now called Gag-Miller counter. It's going to detect the nuclear radioactive, and it will randomly randomly detect the radiation, and it has some uncertainty. That is all I did in this semester, and it is what I'm going to explore in the thesis year. That's all. How to
Hi everyone, I'm Jing Gao here to present the year of my work. So my work is centered around the frontier of our bodily experience, the scars. In the essay, Glitch is Skin, Legacy Russell suggests that skin is a container. It's a pill that contains and cradles environments. It gives shape to bodies. A break, tear, rupture, or cut in the skin open a portal and a passageway. Here too, It's both a wall and a wound. So in my work, scars are the print of our leftness on the skin. It's inevitable. It is an access point to the confrontation between the human body and the environment they live in. In the images, exaggerated print of scars is placed in the familiar daily scenery. The scar intrudes the ordinary life in both construct pictorial world and the present individual experience without anyone's approval. The current experiment of the work is trying to merge the languages of photography and sculpture to challenge the perceived boundary between these media and the human sensory experiences. So scar is also to heal. It is a natural process of healing. To represent this idea, the work shows distorted skin under different operations, which are sometimes uncanny, but also encourage curiosity to examine closely. The appearance of the hand, the finger or a hand provoke a questionable relationship between the limb and then the printed skin, which asks the question, is it actually from a caring hand or it's an imposing one? Also, I started to experiment with gathering scars using AI algorithm. I began with finding it a sentence such as, the tiny scratch on my palm are from the dippers. The system generates images with scar based on its analysis of the sentence I provided. The purpose is to use the technology to explain the similarity in biological processing. The scar is the area of fibrous tissue replace normal skin after an injury. It is an automatic biological process of wound repair, which is similar to how the AI generates scars. They are both unconscious decisions that are out of our control. And then I laser etched the generated image onto pixie glasses. While I gave the digital skin a life in the physical world, I also forced the scar onto the smooth surface of the pixie glass. This gesture for me furthers the idea of the scar opening the portal and to the processed bodily experience. It is both an unavoidable print of injured body and given opportunity to be healed. And then here's one detail close up of the piece. And that's all.
Hi everyone, I'm June, and today I'm going to introduce some of my works in different periods and also an important shift of my art making right now. I started to express myself through photography for years, but almost my previous works are one-shot photographs. And they focus on personal emotions and perception of the ordinary and everyday life, and it concerned with questions of belongings, various relationships between people, and self-growth. They come from my life, and in turn, I felt like they also enrich me as a better way. The act of relocating in New York City come to have a great influence on my work, while in this series, A Faraway Place, is about love and attempt at navigating distance. And through my imagery, I visually try to deconstruct the emotions behind absence and longing, insisting that the space in between is not a void, but rather a new destination for me. And in my most recent series, Always Subside, I explore the process of me dealing with all kinds of unpleasant feelings. As I grow into my middle 20s, what I found that holds me back is the inability with dealing with unpleasant feelings. Sadness, helplessness, anger, vulnerability, disappointment, frustration. Why do I want to avoid all those feelings, and why are they so important to me? I was thinking that if they start, they will never stop, or they will be too intense, or they will overwhelm me, and I will lose control. If you walk along the shoreline, what you will notice is that the waves can come out tumultuously, they can come out moderately, and they can come out mildly. And then they seem to just hang and linger for a moment, but finally they will always subside. And that's also true for my feelings. I tell myself to surf those waves any way I want and just let them ride out their course. And in this semester, I began to create some new forms of works. I practice combining photography and collage in the digital workspace of Photoshop. And initially, I constructed them with digital elements from my personal photo archives. I have years of shooting my photography archives and continue to shoot often with specific architectures and figures. Once I looked back at photographs I took, I began to look for connections between them. And collage allows me to pull the gesture out of the photograph's context of time and space. Also, it introduces ambiguity and expands narrative possibility. Working digitally offers an expansion of ways to unify. It's easy to adjust color or size, but to apply the principles of art, repetition, balance, proportion, emphasis, it involves the same intellectual challenge that analog construction techniques require. I plan to print them on physical materials and try to rework and combine them with other different medium on surface, which might create a variable edition, but these surface alterations are minimal because the work of unifying was already done in the digital space. So they finally will all be displayed as physical objects. And that's all. Thank you.
I can't find the cursor.
It's not mirrored, so the mouse is there. You go. Now it's
Oh, okay. Thanks,
yeah.
you're my guy. Very short cable, guys.
Sorry.
Alright. Jump right into it. For those unfamiliar, my works take the form of video and performance pieces. I'll be showing stills for the sake of this presentation. The first project I completed at SVA was Tiptoe Through the Roses, a 7-minute video documenting me and my friends MK and James participating in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu sparring at Central Park. The footage was accompanied by classic love songs, Moon River, sung by Audrey Hepburn, and Close to You by Carpenters. I used the practice of consensual combat in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to explore the themes of homoeroticism in displays of male dominance, by removing the action from a controlled gym to a scenic park picnic. The final project of my fall semester was Rolling for a Critique class, a 25-minute live performance piece where MK and James from the previous project participated in sparring with me during my final critique class, accompanied by a previously pre-recorded conversation between the three of us on Jiu-Jitsu, its application to life and art. Here I begin incorporating ideas from esoteric philosophy and spiritual theology into my work. Audio recording delves into topics of embracing failure in the Sisyphean pursuit of self-development and opening the self up to objectification through art practices. I drew a lot of inspiration from Matthew Barney's performance work, specifically restrictive painting, as well as Rikrit Tirnovich's principles of relational aesthetics. Too Big for Art School was the first project I completed for the spring semester. It's a black and white video piece featuring me performing a kettlebell exercise routine. Includes halos, clean and presses, swings, and squats, to a reading of Charles Bukowski's Bluebird done by myself. The filmmaking style and visual aesthetic was borrowed from the French New Wave cinema, the bodybuilding documentary Pumping Iron, and Douglas Gordon's Zidane, a 21st century portrait. This piece is an introspection into my own meditations regarding the performance of masculine energy as a male artist, and wrestles with the complicated tension I have with masculinity as a person who recognizes himself to be both a spiritual being that transcends physical gender, as well as a primitive meathead who enjoys fighting recreationally. I began work on my thesis this semester, or the latter half. It's an experimental documentary that examines my journey of self-actualization through physical and spiritual discipline, drawing heavily from esoteric knowledge such as the tarot, astrology, and spiritual theology through Eastern and Western mysticism. The piece is an adaptation of the classical Greek myth, The 12 Labors of Hercules, specifically influenced by Alice Bailey's analysis of the myth through an astrological lens. Hercules contains two distinct components: an allegorical narrative that follows my journey in a visual aesthetic that plays with the classical masculine image of heroism that we see in early Hollywood, combined with restrictive interview segments conducted during a struggle or hardship. So you see me being being interviewed mid-wrestling. That hinders my ability to communicate. My thesis is of course still a work in progress, but it draws reference again from Matthew Barney, Pumping Iron, and numerous depictions of male bodies throughout art history, specifically Greco-Roman sculptures and Baroque and Renaissance paintings. All right, thank you very much.
Do I just drag it?
Yeah, or you
You know, just carry your back. Just hit play. There you go.
Hi. I'm Lily. I want to start by saying my roots are in photography. During undergrad, I used photography to explore topics including performance, being a girl, body image, food issues, Asianness, whiteness, adoption, and attachment. Here at SVA, my work has taken more of a philosophical turn, and my focus has shifted more towards words and relationships. I'm really inspired by Alain de Botton's School of Life, and my most recent work has been about setting up spaces and group activities that end up being meditative. Okay, so for my first critique, I brought in a list with all these like topics and things that I was thinking about. And at first I had them in like a diagram before I brought it in, and then I was like, it doesn't work out, so I'm just gonna throw it in list form because like the alphabet is arbitrary. So I brought that in, and everybody was like, what do you want us to do with this? And I was like, I don't know. So then I talked to Lucas, and he was like, you have all this stuff that you're thinking about, but it's like in the air, and you have to pull it down into a physical space for people to interact with. So for my next critique, I made this 8-page doc of like all the writing that I thought was important from like the past year. But along with that, I brought in words from that doc into these cards, and I call them like got milk cards because they look like the got milk thing. So here's some of those. Control isn't real, having effect is real, having effect is not in control. Animals have to eat, energy can't be destroyed, that's what this is, challenge. God, Jesus. Homophilic aliens coming down to Earth. Yeah, so for my next critique, I brought those cards back. And I also brought in like paper and crayons, and I told everybody to pick a card and draw it and hang them up on the wall. So here's some of those. What is it? Love. Choosing nothing, still choosing something. And then after that, I made a zine of cursed images with my philosophy things. So here's some of those again. It doesn't make sense to us, but it makes sense. Power. It's a good form for your participation in the world. Which is like fall in love with somebody else. Also, congratulations, Shelly. And then for my next critique, I brought in a doc of 13 of my dreams, and I brought in paper and crayons again. And I read out the dreams, and I told everyone they could draw if they wanted to. And that was like a 10-minute long activity. And it didn't even end up being, oh wait, there was a video. Oh, the videos aren't going to play because it's PowerPoint. Okay, well, never mind. Oh. Okay, never mind. No. How do I get that?
Wrong here.
Does anyone know how to help me?
Control tab and then just click.
And then for my next critique, I got the cards back, and I have apples to apples in like picture form. So apples to apples is like cards against humanity. So there's like a prompt, and everyone picks a picture to like match the prompt. So these are some of those. And it just keeps going. Identity is a question of power, not truth. For my last critique, the video isn't there, but I set up a space that looked like my room, and I put up a rack of scarves, and I told everybody they could wear a scarf if they wanted to. This is everybody in the space, and I had music playing, and then Christmas lights and rugs and pillows. And before critique, I had sent out a link that said like, surprise, don't open this for critique. So when we got there, I told everyone to open it, and it ended up being a link to the Myers-Briggs test, and we all sat there. And I said we didn't have to talk about it if we don't want to. Then we ended up talking about it, and that was fun. It's just like another version. We just had like normal critique in the space. Yes.
really well.
It's on the other screen, what's behind you. Non-mirroring is better. Go.
Just couldn't find one.
Should we just disable the mirroring?
Yeah.
Non-mirroring?
Well, it depends, the rest of those people, anybody that's doing anything in presenter mode,
No, this one, thank you.
so that's why it's going.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm here tonight to introduce a couple of my projects I have done before, as well as my thesis ideas for the coming year. Eastern thinking is my essential part of my perception of the world and my commitment to Taoism. The writings and the beliefs of Tao Te Ching and their sublime nature are aligned with the thoughtful approach to the way principles of living and are thoroughly intertwined with my project ideas. Pigments, water, household liquid, tea leaves, and water tank are the subjects of my projects. I like to observe and catch momentary movements, harmony, balance, and momentum. First, I like to show a project I did in the previous semester, the ink dance. I mix pigments with various liquids and observe their movements inside solvents. They create energy among the particles, brushstroke, and the physical movement. The pure pigment movements brings the vibration and the emotional renaissance. It carries the spirits of traditional Chinese painting and combines modern technology with the reactions between water and oil that engage the pigment's movement. Those are some of the images from this project. This semester, I began to make this series, The Tea Planet. The motivation for this work derives from my personal experience as a tea lover. The images are mixed upon the broader myth and fantasy of the theater stage or the planet's surface that the tea leaves display inside water tank. Those are some of the images from this project. I like to combine and develop my projects into my thesis ideas. There is ambiguities in what we see. The complexity of uncertain possibility is sublime. The movements are inside the micro world I created are so gentle and sensitive. Even one of my breaths can affect the result. What we see is a continuous state of becoming. The energy inside water triggers the pigments or tea leaves into a balanced position or unbalanced new movement. The new landscape or a new stage appears as micro-perceptions for an ever-changing landscape. The pigments and the tea leaves define a micro world within the world. I try to create a visual tool that prompts my thinking of places or status. I'm interested in the construction of the idea about landscape and the stage. A pleasure from knowledge of the observer's nothingness and the oneness with nature.
There are possible ways of presentation for my thesis project. Those could be prints, or it could be LED laser cut installation, or it could be video installation with the plasma waves recorded by NASA, the sound from the planets, the real planets. Those are the sample sounds. Those are the people who inspired me. They are Mahali Notch, Vicky Columbet, Charlie Lindsay, and Beatrice Petticoni. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. Wow, can't see anybody. Okay, great. Okay, the representation of my artwork is usually a combination of video mapping and video installation. I see making video art and installation as a way of exploring how we experience the world. Creating something out of fiction as a way of creating life practice, exploring how our subjectivity shapes the way we know ourselves and the stuff around us. Last semester, I made Canned Fish, a short film about a dream where everyone becomes a canned fish, and we have to go through all the examinations, checks, quality control of mass production. However, the person in the film chose to run away from the system because they don't want it to be a product, but when they don't have the factory seasoning, salt, and preservatives, they just become like a rotten meat. But being a rotten meat might be no different compared to being a canned fish. My goal is to discuss how our education system, working environment, and people around us creates this production line of can making, subconsciously engulfed in the aim to make money. Canned fish refers to the objectification of people because a can is a product used to trade for money. I'd like to show 30 seconds of it. Okay, so this semester I made another video piece that doesn't have a title yet. It is a video art piece right now, but I think I will turn it into the video installation piece featuring a sculpture, animation, and video mapping during my thesis year. My goal is to discuss relationship between the truth and fiction and how we as humans react our environment with mythology and fairy tales, because they are in the way meant to seek the truth through fictive stories. The river in the video might be the space where environment and our mind collide, something beautiful in disguise that might be more disturbing or violent underneath its surface. Water is floating in the bathtub, then gradually transition to floating in another unknown space. They become a vessel for the physical and the mental space where a video montage is projected on them. I project a melting body into the water. Life appears in this contained space. Each transition recalls a sense of collective memory, history, and dreams. Many of the visuals represent a personal isolation within large public realm. I wanted to bring my viewers into the space to be encompassed by visual as if in a dream. I mix different local fairy tales and we show them in the bathtub, but my hope is that the audience will have their own interpretations of this video installation based on their own experience. Since I believe that a fairy tale is not a dead thing to be mummified, but on the contrary, that it still remains open to new meanings. Here's some parts of the video. here's are all the references and inspirations, and thank you. Right on time.
Oh, you're right.
It's 1 minute. Okay, I also need to.
Mirror it. Fun, alright.
Okay. Thank you. Hi, my name is Pablo Guia, and I'm going to be presenting the different projects that I've been working on this year. These are mainly exercises or small projects that I used to, basically when I wanted to learn a specific medium or technique, I started projects, and they all are sort of around the idea of collecting or creating collections. So first I wanted to start by showing some portraits. These are a series of portraits of people, friends, lovers that I've met during this year. This is Amanda. I took some pictures of her while she was getting dressed for Halloween. This was very fun, right when I had just arrived to the city. This is my friend Jillian. My friend Francis during the blizzard. We got trapped in his apartment. And this is a picture where my friend Carlos looks like he's liquid. This is another project that I did. I wanted to learn about graphic design, and I was very intrigued by this poster at the bathroom at Anthology Film Archives. I really liked it for some reason. I became a bit obsessed with this, particularly with this vignette, the number 11. And I made my own version. I traced it and colored it and made big posters that I took back to the bathroom at Anthology. And yeah, many variations on the same topic. This is a moving image piece, which started creating this map that I made. These are all churches around the city which have neon cross sign outside of them. So what I did, I went and I filmed them. These are digital stills from a video that I made where they fade into each other. But basically this project was my first incursion in 16mm filmmaking with a Bolex camera. So I have two versions of this project, one on film and one on digital. And the last project that I want to talk about is one which revolves around this character that I created, Lázaro Espuma. He is a filmmaker, fictional filmmaker, Spanish, who worked during the 70s. And basically what I did is I wrote a fictional interview with him, which I took the time to print today, and I made 10 copies, so if anybody wants one, I have them here, because it's very hard to show it on a PowerPoint presentation. But yeah, basically this is a fictional interview where we talk about a film that he's made, that I started to make, and it's called Órdenes.
So basically, creating this character was for me a way of giving this film that I made a context, because I thought, I had the impression that the idea for the film was much more interesting than the film itself. So at some point I stopped making it, and I just created this literary text, if you will, where the film or the idea of the film exists. Basically, the film is a very, very long film where the same frames, the same 300 frames are reorganized in all of its possible arrangements. So yeah, you can imagine why I stopped trying to finish it. More on that on the interview. I encourage you to read it. And this is my starting point for my thesis project, which will delve deeper into this character, because what I want to do is to build an archive. So an archive of films, an archive of films, of notebooks, of posters, basically build all of the ephemera around and all of the imagery and mythologies around this character and his films. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Philip, and I'm just gonna show my series of work I named with the stage. So I would like to create a stage, like a huge stage, like a theater. So on a stage, like no matter how dramatic the scene is, it won't be strange. So the protagonist will perform under the spotlight, and the backgrounds are waiting silently in the shadow. Between these lights and shadows, the strong contrast of the light and shade, and the unpredictable geometric combination bring a cognitive illusion of true and false in the scene. I decided to use these lights and shadows to achieve surreal style street photography. I wanted to use the unique visual style to construct a surreal space. Also using the image explores dreams and the imagination, as well as insanities and nightmares. So here, in the cityscape part, I make the city become my stage. As we know, for the past 2 years, city has changed by COVID. People became downcast, and then decadence filled the air of the city. People are just making self-depression right now. And you might question me about why I'm sticking with these high contrast lights and shadows photos, and also why the shadow is so dark. So through this densely shadow city, I'm gonna find the beacon during the dark time. That's also the reason about why I'm always look up the street and then head my camera up to shot these buildings. It's just like a canvas, whatever white or black, using the opposite one to highlight the object that for this paint. The last part I want about the multi-space. So I often wondering about how to make more dramatic and more surrealism scene photos. Is there any ways to figure out, like, except using the Photoshop to make the stage? So I saw about the work of the Lee Frederlander, then I started trying to catch the reflection on the glass. By the harsh COVID period, like tons of the stores are closing in New York City. The inner empty place has strong contrast with the street outside. So the illusion created by these visual and the real comprehension was frozen at that moment. It makes two different spaces and build a bridge between them. So after they connected, there is a third space has been created. In this space, I seem to be an observer or spectator, checking whether the order of the space is in order or intricate, and trying to understand what's going on here. They are chaotic and orderly, and you don't feel any sense of the discord. So my thoughts and ideas are all coming about my favorite two street photographer. First one is Ricky Metzger. He pointed out a new visual way, which directed by the lights and shadows. In his viewfinder, the combination of the lights and shadows is very clear and dramatic. Second one is Lee Friedlander. There's often more than one world in his pictures. He used various reflections to integrate many elements into one picture at the same time. These subjects who belong to different worlds, at this moment, they belong together. So for the next step, I probably shooting in color to see is there any combination I can play with lights and shadow. Thank you.
Alright, what's up guys? My name is Tris, and the mouse is over here this time. Oh wait, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, okay. That's the last slide though. Oh, that was this game. Let's go. Okay. So, I grew up on the outskirts of South Austin on my parents' property of a few acres. It was and still is a beautiful farm and forest with a nice stream running through it. I had my own little national park to explore when I was younger. It was really my escape from the rest of the world. I have a strong connection to that property, especially when I was young. But we all grow up, and in middle school, I started to get into some bad shit, for lack of better words. I've had struggles with drugs, violence, trauma since then, but this project isn't me telling war stories. I've realized since moving away from Austin, though, that my parents' property is a great metaphor for my struggles, changes in life, and a way to heal through reconnecting with my roots. So it's a photo series and film, but let's start with the photos first. So my parents' property changes a lot. It's something that I've started to realize. They'll plant new trees in the orchard, new crops in the garden, they'll build new barns, new compost piles, this and that. We have huge herds of deer and packs of coyotes that come through my backyard, all sorts of animals. You'll see deer bones just as much as you see baby deer. And it's really just made me realize that this property is a place of death and rebirth, and a great example of changes over time. Coming back to this property to do this project has really made me understand this, and has helped me come to terms with the changes from the past and the changes that are still to come. I was thinking about how I've been catching the same families of fish in our stream for decades. Like, who knows how many generations of those fish I've caught over the years. And that's just like some little random thought I had. But although it's maybe insignificant to most, little things like that I'm realizing help me realize that life is always going to be changed, and nothing is ever going to be exactly the same. The stream is still in the same spot, but it's not exactly the same stream. And this has helped me realize that I can't get hung up about the person I was in the past and the bad things that I did in the past, or the bad things that happened to me in the past. My past self is something I've been running from for a long time, and this project is a chance for me to reconnect with myself and accept that even though I can't run from the past, I can still heal those wounds. It's finally time for me to address that, and the best place for me to do that is on the farm that I grew up loving so much. Alright, now to the film. So this is just a little arbitrary minute-long clip from the film. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to address my struggles through the film, so I left that stuff out, but this is a good formal example of how the film might be put together.
Some of the houses fucking are right on a good sized fucking river. But they're affordable. They're not crazy nice, but they're affordable.
We would be doing a lot of fishing.
Oh yeah, we can do hella fishing.
Yeah. Doggy. Yeah, look at him. Jesus fucking Christ, look at that fucking giant hook. That's all. Thanks for listening.
Just hang on a little bit, I have to go. Hello everyone, I'm Wen Ying, and during the past 2 years, all my work is about our relationship to nature, and I try to describe the landscape in my mind. So I will go through all my work to see how it leads me to the current project I'm doing. So before the pandemic, I feel like we seem to have more control over nature. So I did this body of work to show the vulnerability of nature. I printed out the photos I took and used different ways to manipulate and alter the prints, and then rephotograph them. The natural environment let the prints being destroyed in our hands and become a vulnerable piece of paper. At the same time, I always have the concern that the modern society is leading us to a dark future. So I made this purified road in which I remove all the man-made stuff like cars, houses, and only leave a road or a path in the image. The road is the sign for humans to conquer over natural power, but it's just leading us to seemingly nowhere. And then the COVID came, nature is eventually revenging on us. So our relationship with nature is totally reversed. I feel so depressed during the pandemic because of the awful reality we were facing. So I turned away and come to nature for therapy. I construct a universe of pure natural beauty where there's no political or racist violence. I hope this wonderland can give not only me, but anyone who feels disappointed and depressed a place to temporarily get away. And last semester, I started to observe how we perceive nature in our daily life. I think in a lot of cases, we're not experiencing the natural world itself, but its representation. And it is just as ironic as this image. The representation of human beings, the little white guy, is appreciating the real sublime landscape. I try to explore different representations of nature in daily situations, such as domestic places, museums, digital space, and even in the art world. I always have a strong struggle between preserving nature and doing my own work. I'm trying to draw more attention to the environment, but all my photos just added more unnecessary trash into the world. So as I look back to all the works I've done, I realized that the relationship with nature is so dynamic, and it is actually more about my own personal connection to nature rather than a general human relationship. So I begin to make a diary and focus on myself. Expedition diary is made up by the snapshots I took every day, which don't have any artistic intentions. I reorganize them with different post-production techniques and print methods to make new images or photo installations. I hope my diaries can bring my perspectives to the viewers, and also I hope diaries can be a trigger for viewers to relate to their own experience and memories. The diaries reflects how I, as a normal urban citizen and an environmental artist, experience and perceive the natural elements in my own life. And this one, Arts Made from Arts, credit to Sheridan, a great art. And meanwhile, the ironic, sometimes even ridiculous ways of experiencing nature in the diaries challenges our contemporary relationship with the natural environment. So the final work will include a printed book of all my diaries and a photo installation. So about my thesis, I will continue this diary and to do more research to make the concept more solid. And I think for now it's still too general and to be narrowed down. So I'll continue to do the diary and improve the design for the book, the visual effect and installation. Okay, that's all.
Hello, hope you guys are still awake. I'm Bhutan. Hold on, where's my board? Sorry, what should I do? That's the video. Thank you. Well, it's a wrap, folks, and not yet because I know that UG is after me, so it's almost a wrap, folks. Okay. So the first work I'm going to talk about is called End of Manifesto. This is an ongoing 6-minute video. It includes performance and experiment. The process is cutting and printing a manifesto I wrote in whichever way. So cut it in whichever way participants like and put the cut pieces into a bag, then grab whichever they like from the bag and place on the tabletop until the surface is filled. So this is the process. And why I did this? Because writing a manifesto is too serious and I want to break the limitations of putting one type of belief stated in the manifesto, because life is life regardless of how many wishes I make. I still need to live a life without confinement and concern. Technically, that sounds like a pipe dream, but going by the rules of the manifesto is also not breathing. So, for setting myself a drum goal, make every second count, enjoy the process of life, hence the end of manifesto. And for this project, special thanks to UG, Meiting Sun, Seth Xueman, Harry, Kit, Baiba, Maggie, Charlie, Pablo, Shuan, and Ashka, who devoted their time in helping me with this project. So thank you guys. And the second project is called On David Lynch's Weather Report. It's a 2-minute video, and I also I'm only going to show video stills for the sake of this presentation. So it's a 2-minute video. Inspired by the psychological and enigmatic characteristic of David Lynch's work, I screen recorded the weather reports of March 27th, 28th, and 29th posted on his YouTube channel. Then I edited the recordings. Each starts slightly laggy than the previous one without following a structure or knowing the result. So this is not about the editing skill, rather, not knowing what's next is what I borrowed from Lynch's works and ideology. And then a few photo series that I took after I got in New York. February and March, I posted these on my website. And these are just, screenshots I took. So this is February, this is the first impression of New York. And second, March, during the spring break, I went to Ohio to visit my cousins, and this is what I took from their house. Yeah, and then a related video that I did in 2020 is called What Ifs. So, What Ifs, it's a 4 minutes and 4 minutes and 21 second short film. So I just went outside during the pandemic, found related elements responding to 4 questions and randomly edited them and formed a new narration in itself. These are just the stills from the video. And the idea came from realizing how fragile the human body actually is, and if one day technology could extend the age of human body, will such concerns disappear? And these 4 questions are, what if our hands were the sensor? Sorry, the first one is, what if our eyes were the clock? Wouldn't they be the most accurate cosmic timekeeper? What if our hands were the sensor? Wouldn't they be the most honest caregiver? What if our mouths were the save? Wouldn't they be the most? Oh, this is the mouth one. What if our mouths were the save? Wouldn't they be the most precious place? And what if our body was a spaceship? Wouldn't it be the most advanced of all? I don't think I have the body one. Never mind. Yeah. So that's the idea. Last but not least, I have a page, not enough page of all the inspirations and true love. So lo and behold, yeah. So I wrote these down to function as a database whenever I ran out of ideas or energy. So I always go back to this ongoing list, and I will carry this idea through my thesis. I guess, I don't know, I kind of wrote all my DNA in it. So yeah, I mean, if any of these relate to you guys, welcome to chat, because I like to, I like to know people who are also interested in any of these. Anyway, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Yujie Liu, and I'm going to talk about my project. So I'm mostly doing studio-based still images. I like to make some miniatures or small-scale sculptures using some basic materials like wasted cardboard, tissue paper, magazines, or like painting to create this kind of like fantasy or dreaming world. Referencing from some of the geological wonders of the earth that I cannot physically go but wish to visit, I try to transform those recycled materials into this land of fantasy or creating something, someplace that are humorous or interesting. And this semester I've been extensively working on broken glasses because I found their unique quality of being like shiny and beautiful like glaciers from a different angle. Trying to find the boundary between reality and fiction, I want them to look like realistic landscape from a first look, but then leave some clues for the audience to see that it is actually made of trash. And I also like to include some little figures in that scene to kind of suggest there's a kind of like interesting adventures going on. So miniature is a kind of platform for me to freely express and imagine. So I can use photography to recreate some things from my childhood memory. Also triggers the loss of innocence and imagination ability of a kid as an adult right now. And some future references for my future work will be Joanne Fontobetta, who uses computer software to generate realistic but imaginary 3D landscape, some surreal creatures, and this kind of eerie world. And other miniature photographers such as David Leventhal. And for my thesis next year, I still wish to continue this form, and I need to work more with different materials and work with like dramatic lighting in order to like find more unexpected moment or imagination using really mundane and recycled objects. That's all. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Hi everyone. My name is Lindsay and you can call me Daisy. And today I'm going to give my thesis presentation because this is my first year of my thesis year. My thesis project is called Epistrophe, which will consist of still images and installation. Epistrophe is a Greek word describing when a specific phrase or word is repeated at the end of the sentences or clauses that follow each other. Epistrophe presents variation in memory space and time of changing an original appearance or manipulating different status of sculptures. I also want to implement the instability of things through digital modeling and recreation of images of classical sculpture to create new meanings in memory space. So when I walked into the Catalan Museum in Rome for the first time, and I saw Western classical sculpture on display, I was shocked by their majestic beauty. So then I left the museum. I began to think about the relationship between myself and female sculpture, Asian and Western culture. Epistrophe states a regularism of digital manipulation of statues, which oscillates in my memory. So I photograph statues in museums, reprocess them into multiple strategies, and then use different color channels to segment them. In my recent image work, I was fascinated by the image I found of an ancient Greek sculpture I saw of a mother and son embracing that has stayed in my mind. So I tried to reproduce the vague and distinct impression in my memory through digital manipulation. Photography is unstable. Our memories are also constantly evolving. Can I still recall the complete image from my memory? So in my thesis project, I want to work with the characteristic of fluidity of things, create new visual experience, and question these meanings of images as they are broken and decomposed. I decided to choose the female statues as my subject because also, as a female, I am obsessed with how the female body is portrayed and being represented. In these female statues, I see the color and texture of the statues imprinted by time, which implies the instability of materials. So my interest point to represent in classical female statues and the multiple and splendid meaning that I often project onto the female form. And I also add the ink in the original images representing fluidity of the sculpture,
because the constant flowing ink creates a contrast to the permanent classical sculpture. This ink creates a flow and rhythm, representing sculptures that are so constant and unchanging are also unstable. So classical sculpture are constant, but our understanding and memory of culture change over time. I have been also thinking about how to transforming the work from two-dimensional to three-dimensional space. In my more recent Times Square installation work, Chaotic, I present the looks like screen-destroying videos on 2 large screens. So I plan to present a combination of abstract and culture-related moving images in a juxtaposition on 2 screens on corner or wall in my following thesis year, and continue to work that during the summer. So here's my inspirations artist. The first is for my still images. I will refer to James Welling's archive Epson pigment print series, which consists of 3 different black and white images in red, green, and blue channels. I try to break the images in my 2-dimensional works. And Sarah Vinovic's work also inspired me a lot. Her sculpture series works makes me think about the relationship to female statues. For the installation, I'm also influenced and inspired by artist James Turrell. So I plan to present sculpture-related moving images on screen, maybe in the future, and I still like considering and exploring it. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Last one.
Hi everyone, I'm Hui, and I'm going to wrap up this presentation night. So, my project is called Flatland. It is a work that combines. Oh wait. Okay. Sorry, so, my project Flatland is a work that combines still image and sculptural installation. It is a study of how digital 3D environments are experienced as believed space. As interaction in virtual environments become a part of life after the pandemic, virtual space for socialization have expanded and embodiment in the virtual realm has intensified. Many activities in physical space are flattened into small screen. The virtual experience is real, but the experience is alienated from our life. Despite the flattened nature of our experience within these environments, they are inextricably linked to our physical world. So, the project takes a look at the creation of immersive virtual experience and the visual succeeded from physical world. I take a look at how digital polygons become the representation of physical objects. Deriving from its idea of geometry, the project Flatland is an exploration of optical realism and the gap between intangible and tangible space. I work with a diverse range of digital objects, both self-built and found, to represent a diversified virtual space. Take the digital 3D objects through the process of UV map unwrapping, mix them into flattened printable layers, and then piece them back together with physical printing materials. Instead of looking at specific digitized space, I want to reflect diversity in digital environments in my choice of digital objects with different background and use of creation. And this is kind of the starting point when I started to create with those digital assets and after printing them out. By using fragile materials such as printable and flat transparent films, I am thinking about the fragility created through under the back and forth process between virtual and physical space. It is somehow a woven dream, an illusion, and a fragile link. The digital assets look alive because of their reference to physical places. We are inhabitants that grow from our physical and experimental surroundings, and we have inevitably mimicked the environment we are familiar with inside the screen. Yeah. And those are the studies and I did with digital softwares, and I try to piece them back together in physical world. So my curiosity about the relationship between inhabitants and their environment has always been the key motivation. We use the workplace as a daily term to, so we use the workplace as a daily term to describe a specific site. Yet in architectural terms, the description includes more than a physical space, but the relationship between beings, social activities, and the sites they are in. In this way, it is about spiritual quality and liveness in the site, and it seemed to fit under current network culture context. So virtual space has become our place. In this project, I want to address the duality and virtualize the illusion of liveness through this deconstructing reverse process. As you can see in the previous slides, I have some studies of the digitized images, and then I transformed them into and recreating them into the other space. And I also have a study of organic forms such as flower and some plants they made, although they are not real plants, they are just a mimic of the plants. And as a continuation of this project, I will continue working on both the cubism idea that it is deconstructing and reconstructing back. And I would also look at recreating the environment and and creating the staging environment as a. It's only 4 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so that's all.
All right, so that was really great, guys. Fantastic work. You guys have all been doing some really great things, and keep up all the productive activity. And for those of you working on your thesis over the summer, remember what Charlie, Steph, and I talked to you about this morning. And yeah, good luck with the rest of classes and wrapping things up. And
Remember,
we'll be seeing you.
next week, the thesis students have to give us a document and give each of the present their ideas, their thoughts, send them help give directions and concern. And those of you who were late, I want you to think about what it'd be like if somebody walked in on your presentation. I keep track of who was late.
Yeah. We did a pretty good job.
You will be marked absent if you were late.